Monster Hunter Wilds. It's been over a month now since the release of Monster Hunter Wilds, and the game has grown, I guess you can call an attraction from old fan base, new fan base, and brand new players to the game. Now, when I say old fan base, I don't just mean the world community, the Rise community of people that came in. I mean the original, like 4U or 3, even Freedom Unite, all of those previous players. When I'm talking about new, that's what I mean by World and Rise. When I'm talking about brand new players to the game, I mean to this specific title. Now, unfortunately, Wilds, this has come with some controversy among the community. But on top of that, it has brought in a wide, very broad spectrum of people to the game. In my opinion, this new group of people that this game has brought to this franchise is a good thing. Because the nice thing about Monster Hunter is that it's a community. And at the end of the day, we have brought new people to enjoy whether you're a Worlds fan or a 4U fan, what we love. But that doesn't come with some problems, as I've mentioned. So, as of recently, we have had people in this community kind of bash the game a little bit. Some kind of moderate with their responses, some extreme. And then you have others that praise this game for being so inviting, so fun, so much of a rush. And those people that feel that rush, feel that fun, are justified. The game is a very fun game. And no one should feel like that they shouldn't enjoy their favorite game. Like right now, some people, Wilds might be their favorite game out right now, but might not be their favorite title, but could be their favorite game out right now, for sure. But then you get the other side where people have an issue with certain mechanics in the game and are, in a way, almost gatekeeping, where others aren't trying to. They just feel left behind by the game. What they expected from the franchise and always come to love compared to what it is now. Now, to understand this point that people feel, as a harsh word, segregated from the community or game now, I've gone and listened to several podcasts and re-listened to them to try to understand their point, because to be honest, the extreme people aren't worth our time. They just want the game to go back to the way it was back when it was Freedom Unite, 4U, 3, all those games. Even Generations Ultimate, which I've gone and played recently because it was on sale, and the game is great. Don't get me wrong. I actually like the game. But we're going to get to why I feel those extreme people, and even in some cases, the moderate people that feel like they're just been pushed to the side, aren't exactly justified in the way that they feel in certain ways. Now, me telling you your favorite cake is chocolate when it's in reality vanilla and you shouldn't like vanilla is not what I'm saying. Like I'm not saying just because you liked it this certain specific way you shouldn't like it. But saying what I'm trying to say is saying the game needs to change because this is what you like isn't the right stance to have. And what do I mean by this? What I mean by this is we're going to use, unfortunately, Dark Souls as an example. So these are two very different games that share similar aspects. They both have bosses. They both come from a place of clunkiness. If you played Dark Souls 1, even the original Demon Souls, the game is very clunky. You can feel it in the mechanics. You can feel it in the rolls. You can feel it in the weapon swipes. You can feel it in the hitboxes. The game is not at a proper state that, in comparison to other games at the time, some were not. But if we move into the future, we got Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring, and Sekiro. Now, why I bring up Sekiro in this is kind of odd, but they share a similar mechanic, if you kind of want to call it that. I mean, it's slightly different. Sekiro has the parry system. Monster Hunter Wilds has a counter system. So that's the only reason I bring Sekiro up. But to get back to my point, Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring, and Sekiro grew the franchise that FromSoft tried to build from the ground up when they were told no with Demon Souls, still pushed it out, and became a phenomenon, which they were able to then produce Dark Souls 1. They were able to make that product into a flowing, consistent, unclunky state that still felt like a FromSoft Dark Souls game. With Monster Hunter, unfortunately, people don't feel like that is the case. Why I feel like having the stance, though, that it's not feeling like for you or 3 or even Generations Ultimate is wrong is because this is a natural progression of game development. I mean, we can take exactly what I just said when it came to the Dark Souls series. The Dark Souls series went from this clunky mess with terrible hitboxes. Everything felt super heavy or unresponsive. And then we get to Dark Souls 3. We are therefore given directional movement when we roll, or even when we're walking. We're given very fluent movesets, alt arts, like stances in Elden Ring. All of it flows. All of it feels really good. And they even went further and perfected that in Elden Ring. I, as a person that has gone and played all of those games, have not heard a single complaint that it doesn't feel like Dark Souls anymore or a FromSoft game because they changed the movement. They fixed the hitbox issue, which, to be fair, there are still plenty of games in this franchise for Dark Souls and any FromSoft title that still have terrible hitboxes. They do. I will say this. They do. Consort Radahn in the DLC had a terrible hitbox at certain times. Mesmer had an okay hitbox, but it was not the best at certain times. But this is what comes with game development. They patched those things. They fixed it. They literally had it in the past patch notes that they fixed those issues. But unfortunately, with Monster Hunter Wilds, the community is not understanding that or feeling that or just honestly, from what I can tell, ignoring it. Maybe they just don't recognize it's an issue. Or not an issue, but maybe they're just not recognizing that this is what they're not realizing as to why their game feels their way. Now, they're completely justified in other things. Like, now, sure, they have other reasonings than just probably how the overall game feels, like movement, clunkiness, and all that. Like, for instance, which we'll bring up later in a different section, they have issues with the Palico, they have issues with the Sacred system, they have issues with the Focus system. One of those being something I don't see necessarily being fixed anytime soon. Now, to get back to the overall feel, the movement, the clunkiness, the biggest issue that I've felt, and I went back and played World to try to get an understanding of what some of these people were saying. And like I said, I was playing GU on the side, so I had another idea of what I was looking for. The one thing that I heard from these podcasts is they want to feel punished for making poor decisions. And that is completely justified. They want to feel like, oh, what I just did was a terrible move. I should be punished for it. And that makes complete sense. However, part of the problem with this comes with they also want more health from the monster. They want more damage to come from the monster because as of right now, they feel that we are too much of a powerhouse where the monster that we're hunting is a punching bag. And in some cases, I understand that. I'm not the best Monster Hunter player in the world. I still struggle from time to time. I've been fighting Rathalos, Rathians, and like Rathians, sure, I can kill those pretty quickly. I've gotten used to that. Rathalos, same deal. But there's other monsters where, like, for instance, Gormagala, Arkvale. Those two, for some people, like the higher tier players, they can go and do that hunt in 5 to 7 minutes. Maybe some of them faster. However, I can't do that consistently. The movesets aren't always on your side. Sometimes they're a little bit more erratic with their movement. Sometimes they do a different move than what you're expecting based on your positioning. There's been plenty of times where I feel like I've understood the moveset and then they're doing a completely different move than what I'm expecting. And I kind of like that. I will say that. But somehow the other players, that's getting missed. Now, the reason I feel these people feel like we're such a powerhouse is partly because of the fact that if you go back and play World after you go and play this game, there's a drastic difference of your positioning. And positioning does matter. But this game has a clear stance on where you are on the side and underneath and behind the monster. Where World, it doesn't matter. If that monster turns while you're on the side of it or underneath it, you are automatically punished. Now, this might not be the case for every single monster, but I took 2 fights into account. I had a Green Rathian fight. No matter what my positioning was, unless I was further back from the fight or I wasn't in mid-move, I was punished. And we cannot even throw in Legiana into this because I also fought Legiana because I kind of wanted to get back into the game, I'll be honest. Monster Hunter World is fun. It was my first Monster Hunter. But constantly, for example, with Legiana and Rathian, what would happen is I would position myself underneath them where I felt was free movement. It came down to the monster using the proper movement to counter me, which has always been emphasized in the games. But instead, as much as that was the case, I was also being punished for being underneath the monster with both Legiana and the Green Rathian. In no way do I think this is fair. Now, someone's going to say, oh, the Rathian tail swiped you, or the Legiana. No. All it did was move, and its claws on its feet maybe barely made contact with me. You could say, well, that's my fault. The feet made contact with me. The claws barely made contact with me. That's still your fault. That's all in your positioning. I don't think that's fair, in all honesty. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that makes any sense. If I'm in the middle of the monster and it moves in a micropixel, gets me, compared to in this game, where your positioning still matters in that case, where you're underneath the monster at the right time when they're not using a move and they just turn. You're not punished for that because their toe touched you. I don't think that's a problem. Maybe some people do. Maybe some people are like, this isn't the problem, Rogue. This isn't the problem. The problem is the game feels too fast. But that comes with weapon flow. If you're not progressing your game in the sense of your weapon flow, your movement, or your hitboxes, then you're kind of holding your game back a little bit. The game Monster Hunter has been always held in regard as a tough, fun group experience for positioning and learning your weapons. And trust me, I understand that with Monster Hunter World. I really liked all those aspects. When I could be in a group, I would enjoy playing in a group. When I could do it solo, I thrived in the moment where I could play it solo. But unfortunately, for those people and myself that have seen that, Wild is going in a completely different direction, which the community understands is something that every Monster Hunter has done. 3, brought in water. I don't see it in GU either. I don't see it in World. Why do we have a issue with progression? Why do we have an issue with trying something new? In a way, to me, as much as this game needs to progress its movement to feel better, to become a more whole game, because that was my biggest problem with Monster Hunter World, is the combat felt so stiff. It didn't feel like I was using my weapon to my full potential, even when I was learning my weapon. Even when I understood the weapon fully, it never felt like I was using it to its full potential. And I felt like I was being punished unfairly for weird movement situations with the monster that shouldn't have happened. Like the leg, my character would be lined up barely next to the leg. I would have a gap while it moved, and my character would still stumble and get hurt. That makes no sense. So, what does Wilds do? Fixes hitboxes, fixes your movement speed as the hunter, fixes how your weapon feels. And I'll be honest, is there a bit of a weight issue when it comes to these weapons? Maybe. Maybe. If we want to argue there's a weight issue with the weapons and it feels like, oh, the weapon's not heavy enough, I can completely understand that. But that's not what we're talking about. That's not what the issue is. The issue is that we are now the hunter. We are now the predator. And they are the prey. Which, I mean, it's called Monster Hunter. But with me saying it's Monster Hunter, I do understand that there should be some monsters that are more difficult. For instance, Arkveld, I'm not very good with. Zoshia, can't wait for that to come out in the title update to fight it again, and hopefully it's more difficult. But it felt like I was fighting a god. Don't know if that was based on the story. Don't know if that was based on the atmosphere of the fight, the music, the overall cinematic of the fight, because I'll be honest, that fight was a cinema. But overall, I felt like I was fighting a god. And Arkveld, when I fought him before, and even sometimes to this day, I feel like I'm fighting an immovable object. It doesn't want to die. And you can feel that in the way its erratic playstyle is. Right now is more of a punishing playstyle based on you doing too much. And I definitely feel that. I'm learning that more and more as I play. This notion of something needs to change with the monsters, I will say that maybe more damage is something that they need to look into, because it is crystal clear that the monsters in World and the monsters in Wild, if we just take the Rathian, for instance, the ones in World do I wouldn't say a significant amount, but a decent amount more of damage with comparable sets. I mean, Gaijin Hunter has already done the research when it just comes to Rise. And that is, I wouldn't say alarming, but staggering. If we hold back these elements of progression when it comes to movement, weapon flow, and hitboxes, I feel like we're only holding this franchise back. Because now we're getting to the point where we need this game to feel good for more people to come in. And it feeling good should only be a positive to us hunters of the Monster Hunter community. At the end of the day, this is progression. No one had a problem with this when it came to Dark Souls. Nobody had a problem with this when we got to Elden Ring. Nobody mentioned this problem. The only problem that people mentioned when it comes to those games was these games are getting too difficult now. And that is not the problem. It's actually the opposite in this game. Monster Hunter Wilds is suffering from this game is too easy. But do I feel like that comes down to those hitboxes, those weapon flows, and overall feel of our character? No. And I don't feel like upping the health of a monster is gonna help that situation. Now, I don't have the stats on what the health were on monsters back then, but as of right now, that is my stance, is that I feel like if you up the health, you're not helping the game. Maybe in parties, the health can be upped, which I'm fine with. But I've also heard this notion of monsters should always be 4-party health. And as much as I like the idea of that, that is not, I don't think that is the solution. I genuinely do not feel that that is a solution that we can use right now. We don't know how that impacts the game at its current state. You can't just swap that and expect the game to flow right. With progression, though, as we're talking about, we also have to talk about what Monster Hunter's current situation is with the Palico, the Sacred, as well. Now, the current situation that is being brought up for the Palico is it is way too strong. And if people want to have a somewhat difficult time, they should leave their Palico at the camp. And sure, yeah, it does make it a more difficult time. Do I feel like the Palico is significantly more overpowered? No. But yes, all at the same time. And let me explain. So, when you go back and play Monster Hunter World, the Palico, probably by some people's standards, was overpowered when the game first came out. But if you go back and play it today compared to Wild, that Palico, when it comes to damage output and ailments being applied, that Palico is significantly better. Significantly. And I refuse to hear anything different because I experienced it. I poisoned a Rathian. I poisoned a Legiana. Not even a minute into the fight. Not even 2 minutes into the fight. And sure, you could tell me I had high rank armor. I did. I did. But even I'm fighting level 3 Rathians, and they're not getting instant freaking poison. And it might be close, because for sure I've noticed like within a minute and a half they get poisoned. But significantly is very different. Often happens way more often in Worlds. I can tell you that because I've definitely gone from, okay, it's poisoned, and then like 2 minutes later, after it loses the ailment, it's back to being repoisoned. Now, whether that's from me helping it or not, that doesn't matter. The Palico, when it comes to the heals, in my opinion, yes, is a significant difference from the Palico in World. However, and this is going to sound really weird when I say this, I only feel that this Palico is better than the World Palico when it comes to the heals because it has your ailment status heal and your health heal. And it can do those whenever it wants. But at the same time, in Worlds, it only has the heals, and it only automatically heals you when you drop on your first cart and prevents you from your first cart. And when you call it to drop a Vigor Wasp. Now, when it drops that Vigor Wasp, it could be in a specific spot or on top of you. In some people's minds, that might be more overpowered. However, those are on charges. So it's completely different. So in that case, sure, we're 1-1 World Palico versus Wild's Palico. However, the thing that puts it over the edge is the antidote status element. And that as of right now is the only problem. Like, sure, maybe the Palico hits like a truck in lower monsters. For sure, I've possibly have noticed it. In higher monsters, I don't notice it at all. Like, you go fight Gormagala, I don't notice that the Palico's doing significant amount of damage. I'm fighting for my life against Gormagala. Arkveld, same deal. I'm fighting against Arkveld. I'm not noticing his damage. Maybe in the lower ones for sure, because I'm like, wow, that was significantly quicker. But that is a different story. I think we're at a point now where I think we're just looking for our partner to just basically be a side partner, where I'm okay with that. I don't mind that. I wouldn't mind if we went back to the World Palico. But at the same time, there's a clear direction with this Palico. This Palico is to be kind of friendly to the new player base, which kind of hurts us older players, if you want to categorize us all into one. But I don't feel like it's a bad thing, personally, because I mean, you can literally heal yourself, and he has to put the Vigor Wasp back. That is up to you. But at the same time, if you don't, he is just going to automatically heal you. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Now, the frequency of what it happens, I agree, could be turned down. How often, if anything, it should be on a recharge. What that recharge is, I don't know. Maybe 3 minutes, maybe 4. Once it does the first one, it should for sure be on a recharge and not consistently. Maybe every, I think 3 minutes would be a good spot right there, because then it still leaves you in that, oh crap, I've messed up situation. You get healed by your Palico because you don't have the room to do it on your own, which it's always done. Since Worlds, at least. But it still leaves you plenty of time to be like, oh crap, if you put that 3-minute stagger on of like, I have to be on top of it, or I have to find the room to heal, which has always been a thing. Now, to jump onto the Sacred, which is another issue that people are bringing up. Sacred is a clear riding companion. And I think the only issue with Sacred, in my opinion, is how often you can call him as soon as you fall to the ground. I don't feel like you should be consistently picked up as soon as you get knocked down. Now, when you're dizzied, that is a different situation. I've even had situations where sometimes it even pushes through the dizzy, which is weird to me. I don't know if my Palico knocked me out of my dizzy, so that way my Sacred could pick me up. But the Sacred being able to do that is very overpowered. And I think the best way to appease both the new player base and at least us is give it 1, max 2 pickups during a fight. And if I'm throwing a loophole, or I'm throwing an olive branch here. If Capcom wants to have the Sacred do it a little bit more often, the proper way that they need to do it is a specific amount of times that you get knocked down and go from there. So like after you get knocked down every 5 times, 6 times, you get 2, you get 1, max 2, and then once you get knocked down, you get 1 more after 5 or 6. I feel like that is the best way when it comes to the Sacred. At least we as the older community can kind of find a middle ground with how Capcom wants to handle the new community that they want to bring in, and try to appease both of us, because Sacred is definitely an issue. I don't feel like Palico is nearly as much as an issue as people bring up. I've literally gone out of my way to not use the Sacred mechanic of the pickup, and the fights feel significantly closer to a world fight than what people expect it now is a Rise or Wilds fight. And I think that's a good thing. I genuinely think that's a good thing. So if this is a change that Capcom can do, I think that we as a community can all be happy. I kind of want to take this point right now in the video to kind of talk about the way I spoke in the beginning of this video, and kind of say that in no way am I trying to say us older and even older. That was a weird way of saying that, but in no way are we the problem. Like, do I feel like some of us are kind of pushing what we want as Monster Hunter based on how we feel about previous games onto this game? For sure. But we as a community have always known, or at least I've been aware since I've joined, since Worlds, that these games take their liberties. These games experiment. Like I said earlier in the video, 3 literally had water fights. We literally fought in the water. And we haven't seen that in a long, long time. And some people are begging for it to come back. Some people are like, why would we do that? And I'm with the people of, why would we do that? That looks terrible. I don't think it's a great idea. I genuinely don't. But at the same time, it's like, I don't understand. To wrap it back, I don't understand what our issue is with this game and why it's such a problem with this one. Maybe because Rise soured the taste of some players. Overall, I don't know. I genuinely don't, because the games have always kind of done their own thing of, let's implement this and see how people like it. World was a drastic change to the original formula of Monster Hunter, in my opinion, now that I've gone and played GU at least, because GU kind of divided everything into its own sections for the map, where World, what it literally did was made each area feel like a part of the ecosystem. Where, like, if I go play GU, as much as I like can see how it fits into the ecosystem, it doesn't feel connected to me. World and Wilds has done that. Wilds literally took from World and what World did and implemented into Wilds with that system. And it feels phenomenal. That is progression. No, I haven't heard that be a complaint in any review of World or Rise, but I haven't heard that be a complaint when it comes to World and Wilds. Why is that? That's progression. That is progression. And we love that. We love that these monsters feel like they're actually a part of an ecosystem now, and we're not divided into sections of the map. But I'm pushing this point of progression. I feel like as us old heads, older players, even world players, including myself, like, we need to let go of this idea of it's not my game. In this game, we have the focus mode. The focus mode's not going anywhere. Roricon identified it in a podcast with Rod Tasker that he thinks that part of the problem really comes from the fact that focus mode gives you too much freedom. And I can agree to that. As someone that plays Switch Axe, it definitely gives me a lot of freedom. I am not exactly punished for bad placement when I do my discharge. And I kind of would like that punishment a little bit more to understand my weapon a little bit better, understand how it like how I need to play with my weapon when it comes to this monster. But at the same time, I don't know how you necessarily change that focus mode, which is now what I was talking about at the beginning of this video and we're wrapping to, is Roricon's got a great point. Roricon has a phenomenal point. As much as I disagree with some stances that he takes, he does want this game to feel good. But I feel like I'm on the same page with him, at least when it comes to, I don't know how you fix the focus mode issue. Because for some weapons, it's not that good. For other weapons, like for my Switch Axe, which I didn't even realize how much of really an issue was until I went back and played World, was like, there's no reason I shouldn't be holding down left trigger half the time. I'm sure there's a system that you can implement into the game where once a wound pops, you're allowed to use your focus mode, and that is when you can do it. But I'm literally using it like focus mode as if I'm scoped in Call of Duty and dragging my gun across the screen to hit my object, which has never really been what Monster Hunter's about. Do I like the idea that they're trying new things with focus mode? Sure. Would I not mind if it didn't come back in the next mainline Monster Hunter title? Definitely. I wouldn't mind it at all, because I do feel like that is what's making the game easier. I don't mind the wound system. I don't feel like that's an issue at all. But focus mode clearly does not, what's the word I'm looking for? Help the player in any way. If anything, it rewards the player for poor positioning and hurts the overall learning experience of their weapon. And I think that's Roricon's point with the focus mode. And he's totally right in that, at least. Like, when it comes to, we need to be extreme when it comes to these health margins and damage margins, like, I don't agree. Should I feel more worried when I'm in the fight? Yes, Definitely when it comes to the Rathalos and Rathian, I agree. I feel like they are a little too weak. I should be a little bit more worried about a Rathalos and a Rathian, for instance, which I don't even have the clip actually, but I went to go hunt a Rathian one time, and I go up there. I'm in the Scarlet Forest. Keep in mind this. I'm in the Scarlet Forest. I go up to the trees, and I look up on the map. I'm like, okay, they haven't moved. They haven't moved, and I literally stop myself as I say moved, and I go, that's 3 monsters in one spot, and it's 2 Rathaloses and a Rathian. And this is where this conversation might change for me a little bit. I took all 3 of them on and didn't die. The Rathian was a level 3 or 4. One of the Rathalos was a tempered Rathalos. The other Rathalos was a 3 or a 4. If anything, in my opinion, this is where the conversation changes, because maybe I just had great positioning. Maybe I understand these monsters enough to understand and pay attention to where they are, that I need to be positioned in this spot to get my target. I would have killed all 3 monsters if the Rathian and the tempered, like, I would have killed all 3 if I didn't kill the tempered Rathalos, which, correction, that was my target. It was not the Rathian. But if I had not killed the tempered Rathalos, we would be having an entire different conversation of where those 2 monsters would have been. Those 2 monsters would have been in the ground with the other Rathalos. And to me, this is where we get to the real problem of the game. As much as I love the game, and I feel that the game is perfectly fine as it is, because Capcom does this in every game. They experiment, they try new things. We did not get the Clutch Claw on Monster Hunter. Like, we got the Clutch Claw on Monster Hunter World DLC. Everyone thought it was coming back. I don't see a Clutch Claw in this game. So that worry by Roricon maybe will be justified in the future, but I don't see it. I don't see it becoming a permanent thing. Maybe it'll be an issue in the next handheld title, but I don't see it becoming an issue in the next mainline title if we really genuinely do not like it. Capcom heard us with the Clutch Claw. What says that they don't hear us now? The real problem that we are running into as a community, and I hope, I mean, I'm just a measly YouTuber, like 27 sub YouTuber. So if you guys are enjoying this video, I appreciate it. But I don't expect Roricon to get me on the podcast to have this conversation or get me into a call. As much as I'd love that. Roricon, love you. I genuinely respect your opinion. But I don't know if what you're asking is the problem. Like, what you're asking to be fixed is the problem. I don't know if Ratatosker's issue with the game is the problem. Maybe it is. I do agree that with both Ratatosker and Rurikon, that Gaijin Hunter's findings is correct. There is a damage issue when it comes to the monsters in this game comparatively to previous monsters like the Rathalos and Rathian. That should be addressed and fixed. They should be up by, I'm assuming the percentage is somewhere between 10% and maybe 15, based on the video that I watched. Like, the damage needs to be increased by 10 to 15 on certain monsters. I wouldn't say every single monster. I will agree with the low rank that they do need their damage up by at least 10. And when I say low rank, I don't mean like actual low rank hunts. I mean like the lower tier monsters, like your Comatreese, your Chotacabras, like their damage once you get past the mainline story and get into high tier fights should be upped by at least a little bit. Not a significant margin, though. What I think the developers of this game need to do to kind of address us now being able to move better as a hunter, flow better with our weapon, and if they're really stuck on this sacred thing, what they really need to do, in my opinion, is up the aggression of these monsters. When we have a tempered monster, I should be feeling pressure. The only time I get that is with tempered Gormagala and tempered Arcfield, because I'm not good against those two. Ray Dow is a joke to me. I understand his moveset way too well. That monster is a complete joke to me right now. It's my favorite fight out of all the Apex Predators, for sure. Ray Dow is my favorite out of all the Apex Predators. But it's a complete joke fight to me at this point. It's like, if I'm worried about a tempered Ray Dow, it's maybe because someone else joined the quest and messed with his positioning and his aggression, because that happens once people join. Like, literally, he becomes unpredictable. Like, monsters for like Gormagala or Arcfield become a little bit more unpredictable. Specifically, Gormagala. I cannot fight Gormagala with a squad. I can fight him by myself. I can't do him with a squad. I've lost every single group effort against the Gormagala except for one. Where, like, if you go play GU, I'm having a harder time playing it solo than anyone would with a group. So, to kind of wrap up this video, by using the points that other content creators in the space have made, and to the points that our community has made, I think that based on this video, at least I, maybe not you, which I appreciate you coming out and at least hearing me out in this video, is this is an aggression problem now and a damage problem, not a mechanics problem. I genuinely think it's an aggression and damage problem. If anything, more than anything, it's that. If we want to help our community, we need to kind of embrace this flow and movement change that has come with this game. Now, it's not like a drastic movement change. The movement just flows. The movement just feels better. As, like, I feel much faster. I feel my character, I feel like I can move my character how I can somewhat in Elden Ring. Like, the comparison is there. If you go put someone to go play Dark Souls 1 and then throw them in Elden Ring, there's a drastic difference. That is how I feel with World to Wilds. And it feels really good, and I like it. The only thing that makes it significantly easier and is a detriment to me as a player is the focus mode, which I don't know if Capcom will ever address, but we've already gone over how that could be fixed. If we don't embrace these changes as a community, I feel like we're only hurting ourselves as a community. We are not being the inviting community that we've always that at least we as a community strive to be, and how we've claimed to be, because there's small things that we know will eventually be changed or not included into another game. Like how we've used as examples for Monster Hunter 3 and in other games like Monster Hunter World. Those two big things have never returned, the Clutch Claw and underwater fights. I don't think there's something that we need to be worried about. I think, like, you can dislike the game. Don't try to force Capcom to significantly change their game, though. Damage, maybe health, and aggression is what needs to be looked at, not core mechanics, in my opinion. Because once we start changing core mechanics and pushing it back to the old way, we're being less inviting again. Do I feel like our positioning needs to matter? Yes, I'm going to emphasize that again. Positioning has always been a thing that matters, and we should be rewarded for positioning properly and understanding when to attack, which is phenomenal because in this game we use the counter system. Switch X, it feels so good to counter a monster. But I'm going to end that here. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you guys disagree with me or anything like that, or you enjoyed the video, let me know. I genuinely want to hear feedback because I've been trying to look at this in another way as well, understanding the side of, well, this was the game that I fell in love with. because I've always been on the side of progression in these games because of the FromSoft series of Dark Souls to Elden Ring. Those games maybe have spoiled me too much because they have found a way to maintain difficulty and improve their system that they have in place. Where that's where I feel like Capcom is currently trying to figure out, which is why I think as of right now it is a health, potentially a health, definitely a damage increase problem, and on top of that, an aggression problem. If you up that health and you up the aggression just a little bit, I feel like we're having a different game. I feel like we're having a different conversation. I feel like we're raising this game at this point instead of having a mixed situation as a community. In no way should this become an issue where we're kind of not only rioting a little bit against Capcom, which I don't think a lot of people are doing. I really don't. I don't feel like we need to say that we should just try to push them, like, to make changes that we don't know if are actually 100% necessary yet. These games have always been experiments for Capcom. They've always done something different. I feel like we should let them thrive in their changes that they've wanted to make and try to, like, change the certain percentages. I said I was going to end the video about 5 minutes ago or whatever it was at this point, and I just went on another slight ramble. But yeah, no. If you guys disagree with me in the comments or agree, let me know. The feedback's always nice, and I'll try to respond to as many as I can. Like I said, I'm trying to understand this from both sides because I've been spoiled with the Dark Souls series and maintaining difficulty with progression of movement and weapon fluidity. And to me, as of right now, that is no different. If anything, the struggle is the actual quote unquote, if you want to call it, boss fight. As of right now, that is the issue that they have not figured out. That fortunately for us, people that play Dark Souls, FromSoft has figured out. So, yeah. Change my mind. Try. I'm more than open to it. Like I said, I've listened to Roricon's podcast several times now. His Third Fleet one, his main one that he did with Fighting Cowboy, and then I listened to the Ratatosker podcast, and I have opened my mind to certain things for like the Sacred and the Palico. I was on the stance of they weren't a problem, and now I've changed. So I am open to other ideas. On that note, guys, I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Anyways, on that note, have a good one, guys. Talk to you later. Peace.